Hey, welcome to Coach's Corner, a discussion by coaches and industry experts on challenges, trends, and paths forward as we navigate the life of business. My name's Mike Lamb of Focal Point Business Coaching of Utah, and with me is Adam Carolla Geheb of Focal Point Cary,
Corolla.
podcaster extraordinaire.
Oh, if we only had beers and I didn't have gray hair, that would probably work a little bit better. But yeah, no.
Yeah. And so we wanted to have kind of an open discussion. It's just going to be the two of us today,
Yeah,
and we're talking about things that we're running into as coaches right now, and we're finishing out 2024 here. Q4 is well away, and people are starting to really think about 2025.
I really hope so.
Yeah, me as well. As a coach, it's something that's front of mind for me, always looking forward.
Yeah,
And in past life and careers, we were always starting to look forward a little late, probably. And
yeah.
so that's why the conversation I want to have this conversation is, what are you approaching your clients with right now in
Mm,
preparation for strategic planning?
Great. So awesome question. And you're right. This is something that's front and center on my and a lot of clients' minds these days. Um, Mike, the way I tackle this is pretty easy. I start with asking how 24 is going. More importantly, I try to get that understanding of where they are with their plans. Because to be honest, what I'm finding is a lot of clients haven't really sat down and done the kind of three-quarter year review of what their plans were for 24. And the reason why I start there is because I want to try to get a sense, especially if it's a new client, of how well they were able to adapt and keep to the expectations they set out for themselves for the previous year. If they're now, what is this, 2 weeks into October, and they've identified that they're only at 20 or 30% of plan, then before we even start to think about what your goals are for 25, it's we got to kind of pause, take a little TV time out here, and figure out what happened, what went wrong, what deviated, what threw them off. And that's a really good conversation starter into some of their operational habits. And the reason why I like to kind of start there is because if I don't understand how they're functioning as a unit, it's really hard for me to help steer the conversation around how to go about setting their goals and their strategies for 25. Right? We can always sit there and talk about things like SMART goals and making sure that all of your goals are time boxed and all that stuff, which we've already talked about. But what we really need to focus on is what are the inhibitors to progress prior to understanding where to go. What do you do?
It's a very similar one. The first question obviously is, do you have a plan?
You know, so right. And
Let's get
sometimes
back to the
I don't want
basic.
the answer, right?
And if you do, when was the last time you looked at it? Very
Yep.
similar to,
Yep.
what are you looking backwards on your plan for 2024? Have you looked back on it and assessed where you're at? And a lot of times, it's that old saying, having a plan is useless. Planning is indispensable.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you just make a plan and then you don't do anything and reassess it, and we're looking this late into 2024 and you haven't looked back at your plan to see where you're at, then we really need to make this upcoming plan something that's valuable for you and lay it out so that you're going to use it, um, and
What
make
else I
it,
find?
like I say, something valuable.
Oh, yeah, of course. Something else I find really neat is if you actually do look at what was accomplished, during the last three quarters, for instance, you need to ask that question, was that valuable? Because just because you did it didn't or doesn't mean that it added value to what your end goal was. So it's okay, these were the overall tasks you laid out. These are the ones you accomplished. How do you feel about how those tasks aided towards your final goal? In the Mastering the Rockefeller Habits book, which I'm sure you probably have somewhere close by,
Yeah.
they always talk about the big, hairy, aggressive goal, right? And if any of those actions didn't get you closer to hitting that big, hairy, aggressive goal, why'd you do them?
Yeah.
that is a great way to segue into, okay, let's make sure that when we start doing our 25 planning, every single goal that we set is laser focused and is tied in to reaching some objective. And it can't be three, four, five objectives. It should be one, right? Set one and make it be a little audacious, make it be a little big and hairy and scary, but make sure that everything you're doing has value. And when you complete a task, you're reviewing whether or not you are closer to your goal, your finish line, than you are the start, right?
Yeah. Does that, so you talk about the big hairy goal, would you say that circles back to your big overall business plan? So your strategic plan for 2025, does that tie back into what your overall business plan is, or do you need to go back and even reassess your business plan too?
I think the simple answer is it better. It better.
It better.
What I'm seeing out there is a lot of responding and reacting to things that either came up during the year, came up in the ecosystem, the environment, unforeseen and unpredictable events. They seem to be throwing off a lot of people. Just thinking about what's happened to us over the last several weeks with all the hurricanes and whatnot, major disruption to certain areas of the country. Tornadoes all summer have just wreaked havoc, and businesses are always impacted by that, right? And those are
Yeah.
the things that you can never really plan for, but you always have to have enough buffer and budget in your resource allocation, your understanding of skill sets and where they're distributed, either countrywide, worldwide, et cetera, to be able to withstand that a little more. And what I'm finding is, a lot of the problems I'm seeing with execution within any plan, whether it be, a big, hairy, aggressive one, or just, your weekly sprints. They all have to do with packing too much in, trying to do too much, and then not having the leeway or runway to either deviate and respond and react to, external environment pieces or things in the ecosystem that have changed, right? You
You
seeing
have to
similar?
think, yeah, and you have to think, you bring up the hurricanes and it kind of makes my mind go back to, one big global event that really affected a lot of businesses. October of 2019, writing a business plan, you didn't write in there to prepare for
Yeah,
COVID-19
there's
happening
that.
in March.
No.
But you did write in that you had certain things that you wanted, big hairy goals.
Yep.
Sales might have been one of them, hiring on, opening a new office. There's probably a number of things. You, a lot of people bit or pivoted during that time, right?
Yeah,
But
of
they still
course.
were driving towards their goal. It didn't how they got there was different, you know,
You know,
and they
it,
have to have some leeway to adjust and have the ability to adjust and pivot when they need to.
that is such a great point because if you think about COVID threw everyone for a loop, and I'm sure everyone has podcasted COVID till its end. But a lot of innovation came out of that, and so that was one of those big distractions that no one was prepared for. But all entire industries sprung up because of COVID. The work from home movement boomed, and we realized that people could be extremely efficient in that model. And so there are some good things that can come out of disruption and unexpected actions. I think as a leader, especially if you're talking about budgeting, planning, making sure that your organization is set up to kind of um, withstand some of these challenges, it all has to do with making sure that people have the ability and the freedom and flexibility to pivot and think big, think outside that box. And when I start talking about strategic planning, I don't want people to just look at their constraints and choose what they think that they can do based on where they are today. It's called a big, hairy, aggressive goal for a reason because it should challenge you. It should push you to be better. And if you don't think that you have the ability, the capacity, the resources, the skills, the knowledge, any of that to execute on that today, then that should spawn a whole new set of discussions around what do you have to do to optimize, to be more efficient with your actions, with the people that you have. And that is how leaders truly grow the organization, right? The goals is step one. That's giving you something to try to strive for. But it's all the conversations that happen after you set those goals is where I love to have the discussion because that's where you really drive the innovation. And that innovation that happens on a daily, weekly basis is what truly does transform the company, the organization, the vision. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, and you hit on it right there. No matter what's going to happen, if your company has part of your strategic plan, a vision, an ideal that you want to get to,
Mhm,
a why, and you stay focused in those areas and you build your strategic plan around those things, which is what I focus on when I work with my clients is their
mhm.
strategic planning. We have those in front of us and they build out their plan around those areas, the the vision, the ideals, the
Yeah,
whys,
yeah.
and the who's. Who, what customers are you going to focus on in 2025? And
Who's this going to
oh,
benefit,
yeah,
right? Yeah. You know, you
understanding that we're building out for 2025. We're not building out for how things went in 2024. We're building out for the future.
I certainly hope so. You said something there that I kind of want to touch on. You mentioned vision twice. I could not agree with you more. When you are talking about strategic planning, goal setting, and setting the overall priorities for an organization for a sustained period of time, in this case, we're talking about a fiscal year, tying your vision, tying your culture, tying your sphere of influence and your ecosystem to those goals to me is also a critical point and part of building a cohesive culture that can embrace a singular vision and a singular point of execution, right?
Yeah.
What are you seeing? So, what do you see when you have these conversations and people don't have some of this understanding and they're not having these types of discussions like you and I are having here? What are some of those kind of problems and challenges that you see and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's the problem, the challenge that I run into a lot is people are caught in what's right in front of them.
Yeah,
And it is hard to have that entrepreneurial eye.
of
We
course.
talk about this a lot in coaching. There's three eyes of the business, and
Yep.
with strategic planning is part of that entrepreneurial or vision. Of an owner, business owner, but they're too caught up in the manager's role, or they're too caught up in the even a technician role sometimes.
Yep.
And they're not looking to that vision. I think vision is going to be the topic or the title of this this conversation, but they're not, taking a time, and blocking it out and saying this is the time I need to spend to make sure that we get to that vision. And because they just don't stop. And I understand that feeling of going to work every day and maybe having employees not show up one day and having to hurry and pivot and figure things out and something fell through. You may have lost a big client and you're trying to figure out how to get more. You get
Hmm.
caught up in a lot of
Sure.
that minutia of the day. And that's what I see a lot is people don't stop long enough um, from all of that noise to get back to the vision of what they want to do. And that's why this is so vital. It's
Yeah.
so important to stop and say, this is our strategic plan, and don't be upset that you didn't hit it last year or, years in the
Mm-mm.
past you missed and you've tried to stretch. Let's just keep stretching,
It's all
and
about learning, right?
don't be hindered by, the past.
Learn from our mistakes, learn from our successes, evaluate continuously what's going well, what's not going well, and be willing to walk away from a direction if you
Yeah.
realize that it's going to take too much time, take too much resource, or take too much energy. The other thing that I'd probably add in there is if you're not getting buy-in from the rest of your peers, your organization, that are boots on the ground actually executing, you're not going to get the value that you think you are. So as a leader, especially when you're talking about planning, it's a lot of it is around flexibility and having the flexibility and knowing when to evaluate your successes, your failures. That goes back to, okay, so you've got goals. Great. What are those KPIs, right? What are the KRIs?
Yeah.
Um, key process and key result indicators that really help you judge how you're progressing throughout your execution cycles. So goal setting is just step one, right? Then
Yeah.
it's, well, how are you measuring? What does success look like? And then who's responsible for delivering X, Y, and Z aspect of that execution model? And how are you going to pull together all of those different data points and evaluate, your performance or your progress?
Yeah. And so the next question I have for you is, who do they involve in this conversation? You're going to sit down with
Yeah,
a coach with a leader of an organization, an
of
owner,
course,
you
of
know,
course.
a business leader, executive. Is this a discussion that needs to involve more than just that business owner, leader, and executive on their team?
If it doesn't, then I don't think you're doing it right. I don't think any one person has every single answer, knows all the unforeseens, or has the ability to have their hands in every single cookie jar that any one business requires in order to run. So let me
You
just
have to
start there,
have you
right?
have to have buy-in from top down.
If you look back,
Everyone
the
has
greatest
to know.
leaders in history, whether it be military, whether it be in business, you constantly hear the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, et cetera.
Mhm.
They surround themselves with brilliant people, right? Surround.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be the best leader. You have to be the best listener. You
Yeah.
have to be the best at understanding the strengths and weaknesses of all your different players and how to leverage them and put them into situations where they can thrive and succeed, because that makes the entire organization look better. That makes you look better. So let me just start there because I'm really, really adamant about that. So I think the simple answer is your stakeholders. Who are they? Right? Um, and I don't mean your board members. In certain cases, that makes sense. But it's your CEOs, your CFO, your marketing officer, your chief of product, your all of those people that have a deliverable and have a stake into how well the company operates by year end so that they can deliver consistently, efficiently, effectively, and repeatedly. Those are the people that this has to be, included within a conversation.
So as a coach, you might even bring in 4 or 5 individuals into that strategic planning session for them, or lead them to make sure that they have their vision and they prepare it for all
If
the leaders.
I'm working with a singular leader, I will have this exact conversation. That exact run it back 30 seconds that just came out of my mouth, that's the exact same thing. And I'm asking for names. Who are these people? Let's write them down. I'm a big proponent of writing things down because it makes it real, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so what actions will you take with Dave, with Jim, with Susan in order to ensure that you have their understanding of their priorities and what's important? Because it can't just be one person's view. It can't. Mike, I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly how you get discord within the organization, within the direction of the company, within the actions. And that's really, really, really easy to have one person have the wrong impression of priority and go off just slightly. You and I were talking about this yesterday, right? A 1 degree shift or a 1% shift in any of our levers within the way to wealth can have massive impact on a company's bottom line. Think about that. A 1 degree shift, if you're navigating a ship, right? And instead of going due north, you're 1 degree west. Over an extended period of time, in this particular case, we're talking about a fiscal year, right? For
Mhm.
strategic planning. How far off does that put you,
Way
right?
off. Way off.
All I'm saying is I'm of the ilk that communication is king, getting buy-in, getting information, getting it disseminated, having a plan, having a means to not just once, but repeatedly get that message out around priority, around ownership, around impact, around what value each person or each segment of the business is bringing towards that delivery is paramount in keeping that ship steaming ahead due north. That's my sense. How
Yeah,
about you? What is your take there?
that exactly. Like you
Nice.
said, that Discord. If I've been on teams where unrealistic goals are put in front of us
Yeah,
and wasn't discussed.
yeah.
No one,
We've all
was
been there.
in that, and we just were handed this goal,
Yep.
and it was like,
Sorry, guys.
how
Has to
the
happen. And
F? That's the words out of everyone down at the bottom. There are probably three layers between me and the person that made the
yeah,
goal, and it was like that guy doesn't know anything that's going on, and it completely. That strategic plan did not strategically do anything for the business. Other than
it's a
we're just
morale
going to
killer,
stay where we're
right?
going to be
Morale
at.
killer.
We're going to keep operating in the same place. And so that's why I asked that question. I strongly believe in having that conversation with as many of your team members as possible and having knowledge and, where they think it can be. And then you can build out a really good strategic plan involving everyone. And that's why this is a conversation that needs to happen before December 31st. Because
Listen,
there's information you need to gather to prepare for your strategic plan.
you're right. And I also think we've probably just outlined one of our future topics, which is best topics or actions for leadership communication and the implications it has, all the way down the stack. I think that would be a fascinating chat.
Yeah, and we both talked about where we start, and it may be that you need to go to your team, get all the information, and prepare for a strategic planning meeting.
What's funny is we started with looking back. Both of
Yeah.
us did, right?
Yep.
The way forward is to look back because you don't want to repeat those mistakes.
Yep.
And the other thing that I kind of want to echo this and slam home is taking the time to plan, to replan, to gauge where you are, to reevaluate is always, always time well spent. Far too many organizations either I've been a part of or I've seen firsthand just want to plow through next challenge, next problem. What is next? Let me just deal with the next thing in front of me. And I always find that those are the organizations that have a real hard time responding to some catastrophic change because they're only looking at that next thing in front of them rather than taking that breath, breathe, and
Yeah.
being able to take a step back and really see what's working well. Because what's working well for you, Mike, may not be working well for me. And that's no way to kind of run the organization because once again, we'll go back to talking about Discord.
Yep.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
Well,
All right.
awesome.
Well, we are coming up
Yeah.
on the end. Any closing thoughts, topics?
I thought that was a great closing right there. I think we both recapped it well.
Sometimes I get lucky.
Yeah. Um, so no, nothing else to
Awesome.
cover. For all of you listening, just please reach out on LinkedIn, email, or schedule a time to chat with Adam or I. Definitely send us topics for the future episodes. We love that.
Yep. Yep.
What we're working on and what everyone else is working on. We want to hear from you and make this interactive for our audience out there. So please just drop us your interests and we'll discuss them in future episodes. And just as a notification for everyone, I'm gone for a week, taking a little holiday. So
Have fun.
we will not be recording next week. So there's going to be a little gap. So enjoy your week off, and we look forward to hearing from everybody when we get back, or hope that you're looking forward to hearing from us.
Well,
So,
Mike, hope you have a great time off, relax, recharge, and thank you once again for a fantastic conversation. That was insightful as always, and I truly enjoy and look forward to you and I sitting down every week.
yep. Thanks, Adam.
All right, guys, take care out there. Have a good, great day.